So it's been a really, really long time since I last talked about genderqueerness on this channel. I think it's been about 3 or so years since I last made a genderqueer waffle. So I feel that I am very much overdue for another one, because people do ask me quite a lot on Instagram and things like, do you still identify as male? Like, well, what is going on with that? Do you still? Which is understandable, because I do present female more often than I present male these days. The answer to that question though is no, nothing has really changed. I still see myself as a boy, more or less, I think in more of a flexible kind of I accept the realism of what my body is kind of way, than the kind of like idealistic I see myself as male, I want everyone to see myself as male, I'm gonna be pissed if they don't kind of thing, which I think was where I started from, and where I think most people start from when they work this out about themselves. There is this kind of period of grieving for realizing this is the body I'm in, and it does not correlate with who I am, and if transitioning is not right for you, like it wasn't right for me, you have this realization, okay, probably for the rest of my life, no one is going to see me as who I am. And that is like a big head fuck, and that is something that takes a while to get through. But having now got through that, I wanted to mostly make this video regarding being misgendered and not being bothered by it, because I feel like that's kind of the place I've got to in the last few years, that there was a time when it did bother me all the time. You know, if I heard my family talking and they referred to me as a sister to my siblings, if you know, if I heard anyone talking about me and they said she, you know, and on the internet if someone said she about me, and you know, and that's how I used to be. And honestly, I think that's something that you have to get through at some point. I think, you know, from the point that you realize I am not cisgender, this is my body, this is my gender identity, they don't match, there is this thing that you have to realize, for the rest of my life, I'm gonna know who I am and everyone else is gonna see me as something wrong. And that initially is a gigantic headfuck, and it is something that you kind of have to mourn the person you should have been, and you have to kind of mourn the life you should have had. But I think that phase passes for most of us. I think eventually you come to terms with it, and hopefully you learn to develop a kind of outer identity and a look and a style that you like and that you can be happy with. If you are genderqueer or whatever, and you decide not to transition, because I did think heavily about transitioning. I did a lot of research and eventually decided this is just not for me, and I'm very, very happy with that decision. I'm very glad I didn't decide to transition. However, that basically leaves you with 3 options regarding misgendering. Option number 1, you're going to be misgendered all the time, and every time it happens, it's going to ruin your day, it's going to fuck with your head, it's going to make you miserable. So option number 2, you can physically transition. Even though you've decided it's not the right thing for you, you're so sick of being misgendered, you decide to change your body completely for the sake of outside people calling you the wrong thing. So option number 3, you can still live in this world where you're being misgendered all the time, but you're still in control of your body regarding transitioning. You've decided it's not the right thing for you, so you don't do it. The misgendering still happens, but you learn to get over it. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Because one of the most wonderful kind of gender-related memes I've ever seen online regarded gender dysphoria, and the fact that there seems to be this view in a lot of kind of genderqueer and trans circles that, like, you can't be properly genderqueer or trans unless you experience massive gender dysphoria. If you don't feel wrong, if you're wearing a skirt, then you're not really genderqueer. And someone had responded to this saying, actually, sometimes it's not about feeling wrong in a skirt. Sometimes it's about feeling right in boy clothes. And when I saw that, I was like, that is exactly it. Because yes, there was a time when I would put on a skirt and I would just feel fucking ridiculous in it. But these days, it doesn't feel wrong putting on a skirt. It doesn't feel wrong being called a girl, being seen as a girl. It doesn't bother me at all. But it just feels super right wearing boy clothes. You know, whenever I kind of wear boy clothes, I can't get away from the mirror. I'm just like, that's what I'm supposed to look like. That's how everyone's supposed to see me. And generally speaking, whenever I wear them, it'll be like several days before I kind of seek back to girl clothes, because I'm just like, this is right. This is how I want everyone to see me. This is it. But then eventually I'm like, I really miss lipstick, and I really miss being creative with makeup, and I really miss, you know, like the freaking 80% of my closet that's actually fun clothes instead of, you know, blazers and tank tops and jeans. I want to do more than that. And I think that goes for a lot of the people that I see and follow on Instagram, that I do see them wearing skirts and bras and things now and then, and they don't seem to be super uncomfortable in them. They're just more comfortable in the boy clothes. They just feel this represents them more, but they still like to experiment. So I do think it's very important to throw out that idea that you have to feel wrong if you're wearing, you know, cisgender clothes, that you have to feel wrong and icky if you're misgendered. You don't necessarily. And honestly, like, taking on that idea is quite toxic. That I think for most of us, when it comes to the genderqueer crew, I think many of us did not realize this in early childhood. I think when it comes to people who are firmly trans and, you know, take the transitioning all the way, I think many of them, they knew from a very early age, this is wrong, this is the wrong body, and they, you know, they feel vehemently about it. Whereas those of us who are more comfortable to stay in this body, but we just kind of wish it wasn't this body, I think we generally don't figure it out, you know, when we're very young. There are certainly signs. I mean, you know, as a kid, I had boy haircut. I felt icky walking around the girl side of things. I'd stomp around being grumpy and go to the boy side and all of that. But at the same time, it wasn't until like my 20s that I was like, you know what? All of these things, I'm a fucking dude, that's why. But I think when you haven't discovered it in early childhood, obviously that means there was a large portion of your life where you weren't bothered in the slightest by being called she, which means that this about being misgendered is kind of a learned behaviour, which means you can kind of unlearn it. And I think the secret to that, for me anyway, has been realising this is always going to happen, right? On the internet, it's going to happen. And more than that, in real life, it's going to happen. Because, you know, on the internet, you can kind of control how people see you. You can control the makeup you're wearing that day. You can control the pose and pick the selfie that looks the most masculine. Maybe you don't have to speak online because, you know, a lot of people have voices that just don't sound masculine or feminine. You know, I mean, my voice is really deep for a girl, but it still doesn't sound like a boy's voice, you know? So in real life, I'm constantly going to be misgendered. It's a fact of my life, and it's never going to go away unless I choose to transition, which is not what I want. So the only thing to do is option 3, learn to live with the misgendering. And for me, it's essentially been realizing, you know what? I know who I am, and I know what I am, and everyone else's opinion really shouldn't matter that much. There's a YouTuber I discovered recently who is nothing to do with genderqueerness, not even a goth, completely random YouTuber, but I find her fascinating. Her name is Shalon Lester. And one of the metaphors she uses a lot about people is warm-blooded people versus cold-blooded people. Warm-blooded people, basically, they have the ability to heat themselves. They do not need outer opinions and outer praise to warm them up. Whereas cold-blooded people are very uncertain in themselves. They need, like, the sun of other people's views to make them feel okay. So if they put on a dress, they don't know how they feel about it until someone else says, oh, that's a really nice dress, and then they warm up and they're okay. And I really related to that because I was like, yes, that is the thing. The confidence in what you feel about yourself should come from within. You shouldn't need the praise and the approval and the applause of other people to decide how you feel about yourself that day. You know, you need to work on becoming a warm-blooded person. So it's like, if I feel like I know who I am and I'm completely confident in that, then it really doesn't fucking matter what is being thrown at me from other people. And when it comes to the words themselves, when it comes to the general around the word she, I think I'd like to explain why this is ridiculous, or why I've managed to make it feel ridiculous to myself, in that basically when it comes to gendering people, all that people are fixated on is what is between your legs, whether you have a dick or a pussy. This is basically what we're talking about when, you know, we see a baby being pushed down the road and we go, oh, he's really cute. And the woman goes, oh, it's a girl, actually. It's like, she's basically saying, how dare you? This baby has no dick. This baby has a vagina instead. You know, it's a bit crazy. But imagine if it was more crazy than that. Imagine if it wasn't just, oh, dick or vagina. Imagine if people actually wanted to know the specifications of your genitalia. So they wanted to know if you were circumcised, uncircumcised, 5 inches, 6 inches, whether you were a clamshell or a jacket potato. They would want to know these things. So imagine if you walked into a restaurant and they said, can I show you to your seat, Mr. Circumcised? And you said, excuse me, how dare you? I am actually uncircumcised. I have a foreskin, I'll have you know. Don't you fuck with my foreskin. Don't you take my foreskin away from me. This is basically what's going on when it comes to gendering. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like getting really bugged because you don't know whether somebody has a foreskin or not. You don't know the exact colouring of their labia. You know, we don't want to know those things. We don't want to know those things about other people, and we don't particularly care whether people know those things about us. I know what I have, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be splattered all over the world. And if people assume I have something I don't, well, that's just their own weirdness. And I think the same can go for misgendering. It's like you know the gender you are inside, which is every bit as unseen and private for most people as their genitals. And certainly, you know, more and more in this age where more and more people are not identifying as, you know, completely cisgender male or female, many people do have a gender identity that is invisible and that is kind of internal, and that's fine. You know, people do not, you do not have to necessarily pull out your circumcised or uncircumcised mental wang and flap it in people's faces and say, how dare you get it wrong. You know, it's okay. You know what you've got. Be proud of that, and don't worry about what the rest of the world thinks about it. Be a warm-blooded person. I mean, essentially it's realism over idealism. That yes, you can put it in your bio, and yes, if it bothers you, yes, put it in your bio, and yes, try and correct people, but do realise it's kind of a losing battle. And if you're living in that place where every time you hear a she anywhere, it ruins your whole day, I do think that's something you need to just think on and just build some kind of confidence in. I know who I am, and the people who are really important to me in my life, they know who I am. It doesn't matter if like every single one of the billions of humans on Earth don't know exactly how I identify. Like it doesn't matter. And particularly when it comes to, you know, those of us who do like to experiment with makeup and with clothes and with dressing up, I think don't let that limit you. You know, as I say, I care far more about looking in the mirror and thinking I like what I look like than feeling I have to look like a dude at all costs. You know, because I see it with a lot of people who do transition, who newly transition. They, you know, immediately seem to want to sprout facial hair, whether or not they like facial hair, whether or not, you know, it really goes with their features. It's kind of like, I just want to do this because I don't want to be misgendered. You know, and I don't really care what kind of dude I see in the mirror, so long as it's a dude. And I find that kind of an interesting way of being. Your gender identity is just another private part, really, and I don't feel the need to get pissed about it. So to round this gigantic waffling off, basically, at this point, I really don't care. I really don't care what people call me online, whether people refer to me as girl, they, boy, elephant. I don't really mind. I'm not bothered. So, you know, if people correct people in the comments, like, that's fine. I'm not saying don't do it, but equally I'm saying I'm really not bothered by gendered words at this point. I'm comfortable enough in, I know who I am, that it doesn't bother me. But I think that's kind of always been me in a lot of ways, really, that, you know, if I think something looks cool, I will go out in it, even if everyone else thinks I look like a complete knob. And I think that's a healthy thing to develop. I think, you know, you ultimately are the person you have to please. You ultimately are the person that you have to spend every second of your life with. You are the brain that you are locked in when you close your eyes at night and you are in the dark and the silence of your own head. It's you that is inescapable, so it's you have to please. It ain't all the other people on the internet or the random strangers commenting on your Instagram going, oh, she's such a pretty girl. You don't have to be with them 24/7 in your life. You know, if it really bothers you, tell them off, but ultimately, so long as you are happy with you, I think the rest of it is fucking irrelevant. It's every bit as irrelevant as foreskin or no foreskin. So that's the end of my vast waffle, and I will shut up now. But I hope that catches people up on things that, yes, I do still prefer he or they, but I don't really give a shit. I don't really give a shit about she and all of that. And you know, there are pluses. You know, there are pluses. You can use the word bitches without it being like a really derogatory term. Things like that. I like that. You know, I can refer to myself as a bitch, and that's okay. I can do that. I'm happy with that. And I think it's good to be able to expand your personality and your vocabulary, to kind of devour all kind of genders, not pigeonhole yourself in any way just because you feel, you know, this is how I have to be. I have to pick a gender and I have to stick with it, and this is what I have to wear, and I have to be icked out if people say the wrong word. No, dude, you don't. Do it your way. You know, do it your way. And ideally, if you're not going to transition, really, you have to find a way to be okay with misgendering, or it's going to ruin your life every day, because it's going to happen and it's never going to go away. So find a way to just be happy inside with you. God, this sounds fucking cheesy. Right, I'm shutting up now, I guess. But anyway, feel free to ask me things if you feel there are more genderqueer things that I should waffle on. And I'm going away now because this is very, very fucking long. Oh dear. Bye bye.